the City of Bowie regular City Council meeting of Monday, May 20th, 2024 to order. It is now 8:07 p.m. If you would, everyone who is capable, would you please stand with us and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. At this time, Madam City Clerk, Assistant, could you make sure we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum. Present in chambers, we have Councilmember Estev, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley, Mayor Adams, Councilmember Brady, and Councilmember Truesdale. And joining virtually, we have Councilmember Rogers.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. At this time, I will entertain any motions for agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we'll move on to citizen participation. Do we have anyone signed up for citizen participation? All right, Ms. Nguyen and Mr. Francisco, if you could, go right ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's so nice to see you again. I want to express my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to speak to you. Your consideration of the funding for the expansion for small business support and the MWBC Shop Local program into the City of Bowie is greatly appreciated. MWBC has provided details on the funding proposal, so I won't delve into the specifics tonight. But I do want to state that the impact of MWBC Shop Local on economic growth, diversity, and the preservation of local retail is evident, with the opening of 2 additional locations in Maryland slated for July. MWBC believes that Shop Local aligns seamlessly with the city's commitment to fostering a vibrant and sustainable business community, and we are excited about the possibility of funding for this endeavor. Thank you again for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, we will move on to the presentations. The Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month, the Diversity Committee presentation. Good evening.
Good evening. How are y'all doing today?
Doing well.
Thank you. My name is Brittany Bunn, and on behalf of Elvita Dixon, who unfortunately could not be with us here, but she is here with us in spirit, I'm going to be reading on behalf of the Diversity Committee celebrating Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. It is the Diversity Committee's wish to remind our residents that there are certain months and weeks set aside in the calendar to reflect the contributions of various communities and groups of people. Tonight, I'm speaking about Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, which is celebrated in May to recognize Asian and Pacific American culture and achievements in the United States. Alternatively, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month is also referred to as APIDA, which has been used to be more inclusive of South Asians. APIDA stands for Asian Pacific Islander Desi American, with the Desi term representing South Asian identifying people. One of the fastest growing ethnic groups in the United States is the Asian Indian community. According to the American Community Survey of the U.S. Census Bureau, the Asian Indian population grew by 54.7% between 2010 and 2020. This growth made the Asian Indian population the largest Asian alone in the country. They are the 3rd after Chinese Americans and Filipino Americans. The earliest Asian Indians came to the British colonies in the 1600s as indentured servants by the East India community. After 1790, more Indians immigrated to the U.S. as maritime workers employed as sailors in shipyards in Massachusetts. The first significant wave of Indian immigration to the U.S. was from 1899 to 1914, primarily from the Punjab region to the U.S. West Coast. The Immigration Act of 1917, also called the Asiatic Barred Zone Act, made Asian and Pacific Islanders ineligible for immigration and naturalized citizenship. The Lucy-Seller Act of 1946 was signed into law by President Harry Truman on July 2nd, 1946, granting naturalization rights to Filipino Americans and Indian Americans and reestablished immigration from the Indian subcontinent and the Philippines. Talab Singh's son was born in Punjab, India, to a Singha family. He immigrated to the U.S. to study mathematics at the University of California, Berkeley, obtaining a PhD in 1924. Son was the first Asian American and Indian American to be elected to Congress. Son served in the U.S. House of Representatives from January 3rd, 1957 to January 3rd, 1963. Famous Americans in Maryland include Lieutenant Governor Irina Miller, the first female Asian American lieutenant governor in the United States, Ian Young, WRC TV, DC's news anchor, and artist Sony Robles Florindo. Right here in Bowie, we have Grace Tang, owner of Grace's Restaurant, and David Pham, owner of Great Nails and Bowie Plaza. We encourage everyone to please visit the City of Bowie website to learn more about Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, as some may be your neighbors. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. We will now move on to city boards and committees. Ms. Kara Hunt was interviewed on May 6, 2024, for appointment to the Board of Personnel Appeals. Council concurred to appoint her to the committee as an alternate member for a 2-year term. I would ask that we have a motion to appoint her.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to appoint Ms. Kara Hunt to the Board of Personnel Appeals.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Would you please come forward to be sworn in and bring the little one with you? Yeah, come stand right here.
We won't bite you.
Yeah, stand right here. All right. Would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? Say aye. State your name.
I, Kara Hunt,
Do swear or affirm
do swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland,
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of alternate member
I'm ready, execute the office of alternate member
of the state that
of the Board of
Personnel
appeals.
Oh, no, listen,
Correct.
I know what I applied for you.
All right. According to the Constitution
According to the Constitution
and laws of the state.
and laws of the state.
Congratulations.
Thank
There you go. Wait. Come back. You gotta come back. You gotta come back. You gotta come back.
Sorry.
you. I'm sorry.
Remember, you get to sign that,
I
okay?
get to sign that.
Yeah, and take that with you. You can-
Okay, take it with me and I will sign
Yes,
it.
that's
Okay,
yours.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye. Hey. At this time, I will open the floor to council members for any council announcements. Any announcements? Hearing none, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a report this evening.
Thank you, city manager. The consent agenda. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second to accept the consent agenda as listed. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
And remember, we have that electronic voting as well. That one. Opposed,
Aye
same
for me.
favor. Okay. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries. Now move on to old business. Adoption of the amended ordinance 0424 and amended resolution R1224, adoption of the fiscal year 2025 budget and fiscal years 25 to 30 capital improvements program. At this time, I would like to ask that we table the adoption of the amended ordinances and table for 2 days, or is it 3 days? For us to get a notice out for a special meeting.
We can have a special meeting in 24 hours, right?
You have to post an agenda to at least 24 hours in advance.
We could post an agenda tomorrow and then have the meeting the next day.
We could do it. In doing that, I would ask city staff if they would just provide for us the 18 million that was left over from the previous bond from the ice arena, to just put that in writing, how, I know from the CIP, what we spent, the money we have spent on with projects and all in the CIP, and then what may be remaining from that. And if we could do that, that'd be greatly appreciated.
If that's what the council wants, we can do it.
So I have a question on that motion.
Yeah.
Is staff able to discuss tonight where that money went?
Yes, sir.
Would we care to hear staff this evening? Describe, answer the question? That's
Well,
basically-
one of my questions to that too is that I'd like for it to be in writing so that the citizens could see what it was spent on as well. And not just a discussion in here, but that it can be sent out as an amendment that we can get together tomorrow on, even if it's that soon that we can do it. Have that amendment, have that as an attachment showing how it was spent with CIP programs, and then we could just take care of it tomorrow. But that way, everyone gets to see what the money was spent on.
Understood. Staff, do you have a written record?
Good evening, Council and Mayor. H. Byron Matthews, Finance Director. Yes, to your question, the information regarding capital projects is thoroughly accounted for, not only in the annual comprehensive financial report, but it's also very detailed listed in our budget. Each year, and then when we started with the appropriation of the Capital Projects Fund, in FY '22, we appropriated $6.9 million in our budget. In FY '23, we appropriated another $8.6 million in our budget. That accounted for $15,600,000 worth of spending. Due to delays in projects and reallocation of monies to other projects, and this year, FY '25 budget is using $6,309,300 of the bond proceeds. The remaining bond proceeds for FY '26 is $7,131,433. If we combine those two numbers together, we come up with $13.4 million. If we add the amount that we used for the ice rink, which totaled $7.2 million, we come roughly to $20.7 million. The expenditures against those funds in FY '23 and in '24 are now totaling about $5.4 million. Adding those two numbers together, you come roughly to $26.1 million. Subtracting 1.5 million that represents interest income on those funds over the last 3 years, you roughly come out to about 24.6 million. The bond issuance for the ice rink was 24.4 million.
Okay.
So those are some rough numbers in the immediate,
Awesome. Mr. Matthews, thank you so very much for that. But what we were looking for was something a little more detailed that would tell us what projects we spent money on, the CIP funds on. So that's what we would like to get from you, okay? And if you could get that to us tomorrow, listing out what those would do, that would be greatly appreciated.
we will do that, Mayor. We did provide that to council in FY '23 on the worksheets that we provide you.
Yes, you did. And that was from what that we're talking about, because at that time, as I remember, my colleague had pointed out that we had used 6 million of 18 for CIP projects and helping through the pandemic and other things, and that we had 12 million left, and that's when we talked about the ice rink, and we had the 12 million. And so you did a great job of telling us what those were, and that's simply what we're looking to do now.
Just a simple correction to that, Mayor. None of the ice rink money was used on the pandemic. We're talking
No,
about
I
two different
CIP
funds.
projects during the pandemic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, CIP project during thing. And one of the things we know is there's no question, Mr. Matthews or anybody on staff of how you have handled our accounting and our audits and all of that. We just like to identify what those CIP projects that we spent the money on is, so that the citizens will know what we spent the money on. Okay? Thank you so very much. Now, do we need to have a motion to do that? To table it.
Well, there has to be a vote on the tabling. There has to be a
We have
motion
to have a
second
vote
and
on
all
the
that.
tabling, correct?
Right.
All right, I move that we table it. Would you like to? No.
Well, I'd like to make a comment, but if you move to table, it's non-debatable. Once you make the motion, it's a vote.
But you can.
No.
There needs to be a second.
When we have no discussion on tabling?
Not if it's a motion to table. Motion to table.
It's non-debatable according to Robert's rules.
According to Robert's rules, a motion to table is non-debatable. However, if there's no objection and the council wishes to hear from a member, council can do that.
Okay.
Can we hear from a member now?
Go ahead. You're going to make the motion?
Yeah, I was gonna move to table it until, if we can, staff could agree that they can have it ready for us by tomorrow and put an attachment out so we can send it out to folks, or do we need to give them more
Well,
notice?
I believe there's a problem with the room. Mr. Mears, would you?
So this room is being used both Tuesday and Wednesday night. The soonest that this room would be available will be Thursday night.
What time is the room being used?
There are two events for the Police Citizens Academy and police promotions. I don't have the time on that, but they'll be multi-hour events.
Like 7 o'clock, I believe, that they begin.
Is it possible for this is more than you, time-wise, what's the earliest you would possibly be able to address this?
I haven't looked at my calendar to figure that out, so I don't know if I can make it or not. I'll do my
The promotions are at 7
Okay.
o'clock on
What's
Wednesday
that?
night. The promotions, the ceremonies are at 7 o'clock Wednesday night.
So you're saying, well, let's table it to Thursday, when we know
I-
it's open?
I can't be.
Okay. Move that we table it till Thursday and that we put out as soon as we can that list of the projects that we've done.
Mr.
Do I hear
Mayor,
a second?
Mr.
I
Mayor,
hear none, so,
I just want to let you, I just want to let you know that you may have to proceed without legal counsel.
I what?
There may be
That you
nobody.
may not be able to be available.
I will not, I will be out of the country.
Okay.
My problem is that my colleagues, I believe, are also committed that evening.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry, was
Mr.
there
Mayor,
a second?
I second. That was a second from me. Here, I'm Roxy on the phone. Sorry, I'm at ICSC, so I'm unable to be present on the screen.
Did
So Roxy seconded your motion.
she
That's a
second?
second from me.
It's been moved and probably
Yeah.
second. Call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor? Nay. Please put your votes up. City Clerk, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Stev? Nay. Councilmember Wolfley?
Nay.
Mayor Adams?
Yay.
Councilmember Brady?
No.
Councilmember Truesdale? Councilmember Rogers?
No.
Councilmember Ndeba Madu?
Yes.
Motion fails. Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
may I be recognized for a brief moment, or do I need to wait until we move to discussion on the next item?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, and I think it's my hearing. What did you say again, one more time?
I said, may I be recognized for a minute, or do I need to wait until there's a point for discussion?
She wants to be recognized to speak.
I will recognize you right now. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to be very clear. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, City of Bowie residents. Good evening, colleagues. Currently, this is District 4 Councilmember Roxy and Ndeba Madu. I'm at Las Vegas at the International Shopping Centers Association's conference, trying to recruit businesses for Bowie. I do believe that it is a little unfair to try to push this vote on the budget cycle forward this evening, given that I represent District 4 and my voice is not adequately able to be represented at the table, given that I am at a retail association conference for and on behalf of the City of Bowie and on behalf of District 4. So I do want to make that very clear, that I want to go on the record and state that I do believe that it is unfair to try to push this vote forward this evening, and District 4 is not adequately able to be represented given the number of emails that came in from residents and the comments that are still outstanding. And this conference has been on the books for the last year. I've been scheduled to attend for the last year. So I think it's very clear that this conference has been going on, and there are state of Maryland activities going on where I am the representative voice at the table at the current moment. So I just want to go on the record and make that very clear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, we will turn it over to,
Mr. Mayor?
how you doing? Councilwoman Rogers.
Yeah, so I just need a point of clarification because my goal is to better understand the expected outcome of providing the listing to the residents and now and then coming back and voting. So what I heard was the summary, which I did not capture. So it would be good to have that in writing for someone that was not around in 2023 and being able to participate in the fullness of that discussion. So I would like to see what the funds were spent on. I also would like to see what funds are left over that may be available from that listing. And from what I heard, it probably wasn't a lot, maybe 200,000. But I do want to make sure that we don't miss out on providing the transparency. Even though we move forward with a vote on the budget, I do believe the citizens of Bowie have the right to see what the funds were spent on. Now, I didn't hear that in the vote, so I just need to have a point of clarification. Will we still receive a list that shows how the funds were spent? The $24 million were spent on CIP projects that were originally planned for the ice arena.
Mr. Mayor,
That's my question. Thank you.
Councilman Rogers, we certainly have a written report in our budget documents for the last 2 through 3 years, and we can have that prepared and submitted to you all tomorrow, for sure, which would be basically transposing that and putting it in a written document, special written document, because it's in the budget right now, and it's in the CAFRs. But we can do that easily, and we will, since you requested it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, there was a spreadsheet that was provided, I think I don't have the date on here. It doesn't tell me what the date was. Maybe it was October, November timeframe, that listed out it had a comprehensive list for projects that have been funded with the drawdown of the 2019 public improvement bonds for fiscal years 22 and 23. Can you provide that to us perhaps? And perhaps, Mr. City Manager, we could have a comprehensive review of this at our June meeting, our first meeting in June, that would go line by line, giving a status of each project, what the total amount was of the funding that was available, how it was used, how much of it's left, the progress on each of the capital projects that have been funded with that.
We can certainly do that at the June meeting, June 30th.
Because the version I have has a total of 15.568 million. Looks like it's spread across 32 different projects. So if you could have those, a conversation for those, for each of those projects, that would be
We can certainly do that. And of course, we went through all our CIP projects, and we can lay that out easily.
Okay. And that would be a good starting point, I think, to working our way into the subsequent discussions that will be necessary with regard to funding the new ice arena. We should have balance. We'll be able to point out, and then we'll know more or less what we need to acquire through funding for additional discussion on the arena project, should we need to go forward with that.
All that money went into our CIP fund, and we can show you exactly what we spent it on, and we'll be prepared to do that on the 3rd.
So if I'm understanding this, we won't be giving the transparency to the citizens of Bowie of the exact CIP projects we spent the ice arena funds on, unless we wait till June. Now, the city financial officer just told us a lot of numbers, but I was trying to be very specific for the people in the city of Bowie who said that we wasted this money, that we didn't use it on anything, and I wanted to make sure that we presented that to them, that money was used in OCIP and what it was done to support the city and what those projects were. My colleagues, you choose not to have that transparency, and with that, I'm very disappointed. I will still request, if you could, Mr. Matthews, we not have our citizens have to go back over 2 or 3 years of budgets, but that we could provide each of those for them so that they don't have to go back and look and see what the CIP was and how much was spent for that. Okay? And that's about transparency. Thank you. And I'm disappointed that we choose not to be transparent, particularly when having conversations with my fellow council members and with city staff. I think that's totally inappropriate. But having said that, moving on to the budget issues, I will recognize my colleague, Dennis Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. I take exception to your characterization that those that did not support tabling are not willing to be transparent. And transparency takes many different steps and avenues. I think you heard from Councilwoman Rogers and from Mayor Pro Tem Dufour Wolfley that what we desire and what staff has said they can do is basically generate a report that gives a complete accounting of the money, the 18 million that was in the previous bond for the ice rink. And I would suggest to you that is being more transparent, because I don't think many citizens will go to the budget document and go through it, even if we have a nice succinct report attached to it. I think a standalone document that addresses the issue is being very transparent. And there are questions about how things occurred. Matter of fact, we're in the 11th year of this project. There have been a lot of outstanding things that have occurred over the years that maybe we need to fess up and account for and atone for, if you will. But I think we, in wanting to move forward with the budget tonight, understand, one, you can have transparencies in multiple ways, and more importantly, you have a deadline. We've got the 24th where we have to report to the county what our tax rate is. Now, yes, we acted 2 weeks ago and said we adopted the tax rate, but the official recordation of that is the adoption of the budget and the budget ordinance, and that's what gets reported to the county. So we've got 4 days to deal with. So I'm suggesting that we can act on this, and as you know, if we discover things that change the numbers in the budget, we can always do a supplemental appropriation to correct it at that time. But I think in the 11th hour, it's more beneficial to act on the budget tonight and move forward with this, but also hold staff to report back and make it a public document that is highly transparent.
Councilman, I need to correct you on several issues there. Number one, we do not have to have the budget approved tonight. If you have been told that or believe that, you're wrong. We do not have to have it done tonight, number one. Number two is, you said the same thing I said, and that is, I said our citizens shouldn't have to go back through the budget to find that information, that we're all on the same page, that we just simply have that put forward on one sheet of paper where they can see over all the years how that money was spent. So on those two things, we agree. I just feel we should have that transparency and do that before we approve a budget, and have that transparency for them of how we did that. Now, there are people who have talked to me, and as well, anyway, at one point we had 20 million. We have people who continue to come up here and say that we just spent that money, we lost all that money, which is simply not a fact. Now, we're talking about doing 30 million for an iceplex. You know, when we were first talking about that, we thought we had 12 million that was going towards that. And my case was, I thought we had 18 million that we would have to go out for because we had 12 to make the 30. Now we're saying, no, that's not right. We didn't follow that. We've already used it. So I said, okay, let's do that transparency to people to see that before we put in the budget that we're planning on going out to get 30 million. Because the other part of that is for 30 million, I think the citizens of Bowie should have a say on if we should even be spending that much money on the ice rink. And if we were to say it, I think it should be a referendum for the citizens of Bowie to vote on whether or not we want to spend 30 million of their dollars without knowing exactly how they feel. And that's the largest sum ever for anything. And maybe we should consider a referendum on that 30 million. Councilman Estelle?
Yeah, I appreciate the mayor's remarks. I'm a little surprised we've gone in this direction. We were building a $24 million two-sheet rink. And at the time that the mayor and a majority of the council at the time decided to stop moving forward with that project, which was already being built, staff made it very clear to us that stopping that project would not make our existing ice rink any younger, would not change the need for a replacement rink, and that delays in the process would result in future rinks that would be considerably more expensive. So I would submit that if there are any concerns about the cost of this facility, that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who was present 4 years ago when we decided to cancel a project mid-construction. We knew this was going to come down the pike. So I would submit, if we really want to relitigate that, we can. But I would also submit to you that I don't think it'd be particularly advantageous to remind everybody why we ended up here again.
Why we end up here again?
Needing to build a new rink, a $30 million one-sheet rink as opposed to the $24 million two-sheet rink that would have been built by now and operating if we had
That
simply
would not
continued
have
with that
allowed
project.
us the money during the pandemic to make sure that we were able to do the CIP projects that helped the city either.
I mean, we had already bonded out money. We had bought an ice arena. We simply chose not to build an ice arena.
That's what we as a council decided.
Narrowly, at 5:30 in the morning, yeah.
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 And so now we're here at a budget meeting where we're talking about what we're doing on budget, and the right thing to do is to talk about what are those issues and make sure we put them front and center for the citizens.
And we've had
that's what
7
I
meetings
just
to do
did.
that.
That's what I just did.
We've had 7 meetings to do that in a budget we've been discussing since last December.
And you put no timeline on me or any member of this council.
No.
When we look at something and we start to review it and we say, wait, there was something we did here, we need to check this, or even to put it back, that's the right of every council member. That should be your obligation. And we have not approved the budget yet. That's what we're doing tonight. And so we're discussing the issues about what's in the budget and what we should or should not go forward with. So that's how we get here, because that's the right thing to do. That's how democracy works. Any other comments?
I have a question and a comment, if I may. I'm virtual.
Please, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I don't think that it is relevant to make this evening and this discussion about the validity of an ice rink. I don't think that's the matter at hand. I think the matter at hand is that there are residents who are asking for greater clarity and transparency, and there are other members on this elected body who are trying to rush through a budget. And I'm not really understanding why we cannot delay a couple of days so that staff can provide that transparency. Just like Councilmember Brady just said a couple of minutes ago, there's no reason why we can't pass it and go back and alter it. There's also no reason why we can't wait a couple of days and provide the residents with the clarity that they need so that their voices are adequately represented. And so I don't necessarily understand what the rush is. I don't really understand the motivations behind that. It's not entirely clear why we are so in a rush when there have been residents that have emailed and we have received comments. Everything that we have in our email or public record of people who are expressing concern and clarity to just understand a greater financial clarity on our budget objective. I mean, let me be clear. This is not about the debate on whether an ice rink should go forward or not. This is about the fact that residents need and want and deserve financial clarity on how we are spending their money, their tax dollars, the money that they pay into the city. So I'm just not really clear on the rush of that. That's number one. Number two, I asked a couple of weeks ago when we went through the economic development section that South Bowie revitalization be prioritized and added as an objective. I didn't see that added in there. So I'm not really understanding why there's pushback there. Because even when I remember discussing it that evening, there was a little bit of lack of commitment from this body to add that as an objective. And I'm not really sure why there would be any pushback or any lack of support around prioritizing South Bowie, just the same way that we are prioritizing Old Bowie, and we have arguably for the last couple of years. I think that's a fair ask, especially since we had residents who dedicated and allocated their time to come forward and give us budget recommendations and give us recommendations across the board on what it would look like to revitalize South Bowie. And it's been a big issue over the last couple of years. The residents have consistently voiced their concerns on prioritizing the revitalization of South Bowie, and this body has decided not to listen to their concerns. So that's number two. I'm going to request that be added in as an objective, and that needs to go into this budget cycle. And I'm speaking on behalf of District 4 here. That's number two. Number three, I think we also talked about a greater set aside. I don't know if that was $25,000 to $50,000 in economic development to either work with a marketing firm or something adjacent to be able to recruit and attract more businesses to the city of Bowie. Last I checked, in the last year, It may not be 100% right for accuracy because, like I said, I'm at a Retailers Association conference recruiting businesses to come to Bowie, and the only person here from the city of Bowie. But last I checked, the last budget was $77.4 million, and I don't really see the challenge of allocating 25 to 50, so $25 to $50,000 in economic development, so that we can attract and recruit the businesses that residents have so consistently complained about for the last couple of years. So those are the 3 points that I want to make very clear, and I want to amplify to this body because it's not really clear why those two objectives. I think the third one might have been added in a little bit, so please excuse me if I'm misquoting on the third bullet point, but especially on number 2, I want to be very clear, and I want to advocate to the highest degree for my community that the revitalization objectives of South Bowie, or at least exploring that, does need to be added as a budget objective under economic development going into this fiscal year. And then the last outstanding point, which is the first point that I want to re-amplify, I'm not really understanding the rush to approve this budget cycle this evening. Like we all said, we are all public servants. So that means if we need to hop on another meeting on Wednesday or Thursday so that we can push this information out to the community so that we can all provide it in our respected newsletters, I don't really see the challenge or why there's a pushback around wanting to serve the residents and provide greater clarity. Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Mayor, and those are all my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Truesdale?
Yes. For the record, I do want to state that I definitely honor transparency, and I think that's very important. The people need to have the most clarity as they possibly can when us making a decision like this evening. I think the city staff were providing the numbers that justify some of the movement that has been going on in the past several years with the ice skating ring. I do have some concerns in terms of just the clarity, the transparent. If it takes the time that we need to take, I definitely would reconsider. Let's have that time to do so. Have that level of transparency.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Rogers?
thank you for recognizing me. So I've been listening to the conversation. I think that we are all saying the same thing, but the one point that's different, because everybody wants transparency. We are one Bowie. Everyone that sits on this council also pays taxes. So we are all vested into our decision making, and it is not a goal of mine or anybody else that sits on this council to hide any information from the citizens of Bowie. As I mentioned many times, one of the things I heard consistently throughout my campaigning was about the ice skating rink and the money that was lost because of its not being built. All right, so I've heard that consistently. So I know this is a big issue for the city of Bowie. When we were going through this budget over the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, whatever length of time it was, we had the opportunity to have a full discussion around the ice skating rink. And for some reason, to my amazement, we kind of skipped past it. There was not a lot of full discussion around it. So what we're asking now, and what the mayor is asking for, is transparency. Let's provide information to the community, because there was a misunderstanding that there was funds left over of a significant amount that could offset the building of a new arena. And what we heard tonight is there is not a significant amount of money that's available to pay for the arena. So the thing that is the key point to this entire discussion is whether or not we make a decision today, or whether we wait until afterwards, after we've gone down this process over the last several weeks, and we're at a point where we're ready to make a decision on the budget, whether or not we do it today, or whether or not we wait for a couple days and the information out to the citizens. I want to just convey this one thing. We had the opportunity to discuss this more fully. It did not happen. We have the opportunity right this moment to share that information, and then tomorrow to get the information out. And we also have the flexibility to make decisions in a budget that we've already approved by amending the budget. So I don't think anybody is too far off. So I'm sorry about the disappointment. I'm disappointed in that we've created fractions behind this as I sit and listen to the conversation. We're all about one Bowie. We're all trying to work together. Now, how can we make this happen? It's all about, we've already started a process that was about making a decision today on the budget. But the budget can be amended. We can get the information out to the citizens. The citizens can speak. They can say, no, I don't want it this way. We can change the budget. We can modify it. It's all about process. And I don't hear anything different with anybody saying no one is trying not to be transparent. We all pay taxes. We all want to see what the heck the money has been spent on. But we also have made decisions along the last several weeks that we're ready to overall agree or disagree on as far as approving a budget. So it really disappoints me tremendously that we've made this into something that it never needed to be. All we need to do is say, okay, we approve the budget as is. We're going to provide all the information we have available to remind our citizenry of what decisions were made with the monies that we received. And then if necessary, referendum or however else, if the citizens choose not to want to proceed down this road, then we as a council have to take on that responsibility to go back and make any type of changes to the budget. So that is my comments. I'm extremely disappointed as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
can I go
Thank-
after Mayor Pro Tem again? Just after.
go ahead. I think Mayor Pro Tem, and then you, Councilwoman. Go ahead,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple brief comments. I agree with Council Member Rogers. We've had the time, we've gone through this budget. There was a question raised about what's the rush. We have been through a deliberative process already, and we've had full opportunity to discuss this. I have concerns about pushing this down the road because of the urgency. All of a sudden it becomes urgent instead of planned. We've had this planned. It's on our schedule since before the new year began. We had an agenda for our calendar for our entire year, and we knew when the budget was going to be. So there's no surprises there. Staff, I have concerns about staff availability. I know that the city manager is not available. I haven't checked with anybody else, but it's a lot to ask people to come in here on yet another night for this process. And also ourselves. We just went through an entire budget process. And I think we've had plenty of opportunity, and I don't think we followed through. If there are ambiguities, then we should have brought them forward. On the subject of transparency or the lack thereof, there has been transparency on this. Staff provided us with a comprehensive list in an Excel format in response to our questions, our specific questions about what the money was spent on. So there is transparency, and I do think that there is an and I do think that there is an opportunity here to expound upon that and to raise it up again at the next meeting to make sure there's an opportunity for us to bring it to the top again and to make it front and center for everybody so that it's a repetitive process, and I think that's great, and I think we should. And I think there should be a dialogue on each of the issues and on each of the items that are there, and I think there ought to be awareness for everybody, and I think it's great to put it out there in a form that people see in one place, just delineated. It's not mixed in with any other subject. It's all lined up, and I do think that's helpful, and I think we ought to do that at our next meeting. And I think we ought to move forward with our budget for this evening and keep the process moving. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Mamadu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a couple of comments that I do want to address and just be very clear and just re-advocate and re-emphasize on behalf of District 4. There was a comment made about kicking this down the road. I don't see 48 hours or 72 hours as down the road. So I'm not really sure the correlation or the emphasis or the overemphasis on trying to make it seem like we're elongating a process by 72 hours or 48 hours. So that's point number one. Number two, timing on the budget. I think that is an interesting point as well, that yes, the budget has been publicized since January, but also so has the Retailers Association conference, and it actually was publicized a year in advance. And so I don't know whose fault that is on timing, because I've always been scheduled to be here, and arguably this is probably one of the most important issues in the city of Bowie, and we don't have representation here, and I am here, and I'm not prepared to vote on this evening. So I don't really see the issue on delaying this 24 hours and 48 hours so that District 4 can adequately be represented, in addition by their council member that is their district representative, that I will be back on Wednesday morning. So I think that's a little unfair to try to cut that voice out. So that's number two. Number three, a lot to ask for people to come in. We're all public servants here, and we make a conscious decision to run for office. And if we feel like timing is an issue or something that's difficult to juggle, then simply just don't run for office. Like, nobody is forcing anybody else to be here. And so I think the comment about a lot to ask for, we all work for the residents. So if the residents are asking for more clarity and there's a gap in understanding, I think it is disingenuous of us to try to push that forward. And then my point on number four, and then I'll come to my fifth point and close out. Point on number four, respectfully, please don't gaslight at least my community and tell them how they should or should not engage in this process. If there have been voices that have come forward and expressed that there is a lack of clarity and that there is something that they don't understand, again, let me amplify that it is disingenuous of us, and it is actually, quite frankly, wrong as a public servant to try to push something through and then just tell them, oh, well, we can come back later. Even though you don't have the clarity today, we'll just come back later and address it later. I really just don't see the issue on pushing it back 48 to 72 hours. That's number four. And then number five, on the point of we are one Bowie, then if we are one Bowie, then all voices should be represented equally and at the table equally. And it is clear that I think it's a fair ask and it's a fair compromise to at least wait 48 hours, 72 hours to provide the clarity to the community so that we can be one holistic voice and one Bowie and properly, adequately come back and represent our community in an intentional and deliberate manner, and not in a hasty manner, and rush this through. So, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you again for recognizing me. I do want to just amplify again on behalf of District 4. Please don't gaslight my community and tell them how it is that they should engage in this process. I understand that a lot of us are tired, and it has been a lengthy process, and we all have jobs. I get that. However, if there has been a concern that have been amplified by one or more residents, I do think we owe it to the community in which we all publicly decided to represent, to give them the clarity that they need to also allow us to deliberately represent them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I think at this point, I'd like to go back to where this all began.
Okay.
And this was with me simply asking that we have a listing, as people, when we've talked about, of what the dollars were spent on in the CIP funds that we had from there. Now, Mr. Matthews did a great job of giving us dollars, but no clarity on what those projects were. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that's how we started down this road. I'm not here to rubber stamp any budget or anything. If I have questions up to the last minute, I will ask them. And I will ask that the council wait a day or two to make sure we have that people understand that, and we move forward. We have chosen not to do that. That's where this whole issue is coming up at. Is that this, if you look at your agenda, it says eligible for action. It doesn't say we have to take action today. And I think it's wrong to say that we've been here for so long, we've been through that. If we see something that we need to question today, we still need to question it. We can't say, well, we missed that. No, the people deserve our best efforts. And that's what I was trying to put forward. Our best efforts at what that money was spent on and how it was spent. And so having said that, I will then turn again to city staff regarding the ordinance. Would you like to share anything?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think we don't have anything else to say. We're ready to react in whatever fashion the council wants us to.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion to adopt, for the adoption of amended ordinance 0-424 and amended resolution R12-24. Excuse me, you need a separate motion on the two for the ordinance and the separate, okay. Then in that case, I'll limit my first motion to the adoption of the amended ordinance 0-424, for fiscal year 2025 budget.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Discussion?
Yes. Quick question, just confirming that we are moving forward with June 3 to go over the details of the Excel sheet.
Yes, we'll have that ready.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question as well.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Was I recognized or was that someone else?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just clarification on the motion. Does that include the two additions in terms of the objective under economic development, or is that without?
It's not part of the ordinance. Let me turn to staff for a quick moment here.
Well, those issues that were brought up never got a 4-vote consensus, so they weren't included in the budget.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Mayor, another question. Given that we haven't adopted the budget, does that include adding them as changes to a budget that we are going to adopt?
No.
Well, I think the question, if I heard it right, is that we had talked about adding that 50,000 for economic development within the city. Hearing the motions that our colleagues have made, I don't believe that's included.
No, it's not. It's not in our budget.
And also adding South Bowie revitalization as an objective under economic development alongside of Old Bowie.
It didn't get 4 votes either, sir.
Well, I couldn't hear you.
Did not get a 4-vote consensus during the budget work session, so it's not included either.
What did he say?
It was never voted on, so it's not.
We never voted.
Can we vote on it now? Can someone make a motion and vote on it now?
We require amendment of the proposed ordinance. And yes, it can be, you all can do it, but we require amending the ordinance that we currently have. So just for process.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So did I hear a request for a friendly amendment for 50,000 addition to the budget for marketing purposes?
Yes,
It was market, and it was also adding South Bowie revitalization as an objective under economic development alongside Old Bowie.
I'd just like to take them one at a time.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm fine with that, open for discussion. Anybody comments here?
Second on the motion, please.
Is there a second? Okay. All right, so that's an,
The other item?
Discussion? You had questions?
No.
Before, Amber Mamadu, you were saying you wanted to speak.
No, no. So we have a motion to approve the ordinance with a friendly amendment that's been, which actually I don't think needs a vote. I think with a friendly amendment, that can stand as is.
Thank you. And just while I still have the floor, so now do we move on to the other amendment for South Bowie revitalization?
And I believe there was a conversation held with the council that there was a preference for having it for the city as a whole and not South Bowie in particular. Is that my recollection?
No, I don't think, I'm sorry,
recall.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Go ahead, Councilwoman Rogers.
Okay, so I believe it was just as we've done with Old Bowie, this would be separate, not just for South Bowie. The $50,000 for economic development was for marketing for across the city. The objective for the revitalization of South Bowie was a specific objective. So it was just for South Bowie, just like we did with Old Bowie. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no objection to either friendly amendment, and so the motion stands with motion to adopt ordinance 0-4-24 with the addition of $50,000 for marketing the city and for a objective of South Bowie revitalization.
I agree with the two amendments.
That's what I was getting at.
Okay.
I said, that's what I was getting at.
We needed a second.
Okay, so you don't want to add?
I
still
will
discussing.
now, I will, but at that time, that's what I was getting at.
Go ahead.
So
for
you open it,
discussion.
you've finished your
I
motion?
have finished my motion. I've accepted two friendly amendments and available for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
That's my role.
No, I said I'm available for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council, could we ask, when you're making your motions, could you please turn on your microphone so that we can hear them? We're having a little bit of trouble keeping track of who's making motions and who's seconding. So if you could put your microphones on when doing that, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Motion was from me and the second was from Councilmember Estef.
And I accepted both friendly amendments.
All right, so now, more discussion, correct? Mr. Mayor?
Discussion.
Yes.
Right.
Boy, it's getting a little confusing here. Just,
Excuse me. I'm sorry, City Manager, what were you saying?
I just want to make sure.
Oh, we can handle this up here. Trust me. We can handle this. We can handle it. That's why we're the council.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff.
Turn off your mic, City Manager. There you go.
With regards to the budget, I think it is appropriate that we adopt it tonight and move forward. We do have issues. I don't dispute that. And now is not the time necessarily to try and solve all of the world's problems at one time. It's been suggested that we're rushing into this, but this is the fifth week that we've been going painstakingly through this document, all 327 pages, one at a time, including the ice arena, including the funds for it, including the general revenue and expenditure. So it's been a very slow and arduous process that happens every year, year in and year out. I think we move forward by adopting the budget. Remember, when we go to the bond market and when we go looking at actually building the ice arena, we're going to be confronted with some realities, and we'll have to make decisions then. But at least the budget document will be in place, and guess what? If we end up deciding not to do the ice arena, which I don't agree with, but if that's our avenue, it's not a problem with the budget that we adopt tonight. But we do need to adopt the budget in order to give direction to the city staff in order to maintain the excellent service that we provide our citizens and do a fine job. So with that, I'm going to support the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion?
This, and we're on the ordinance now. After, just kind of speaking on the transparency part, I think city staff and our communication along the colleagues, the council has been has been been very transparent, and I believe that the reports and the numbers they don't lie in the sense of the clarity that District 3 and some other districts we had testimonies in the past 5 weeks in terms of the ice skating ring. I would like the people to ensure that they're getting clarity that they need in regards of not rushing passing the budget this evening. So that's my comment that I want to make towards that. And if that can be in terms of retract in any type way, then that's what I would like. But for the most part, the clarity is important. June, I would like to definitely have more time, a day or two, whatever it takes for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Rogers?
Thank you, sir. One of the things I do want to note is that just by providing a list of expenditures to citizens to look at in a day or two is not enough time. I would rather vote on the budget as is, knowing that it can be changed and amended, and giving citizens a full opportunity not only to review the list of expenditures, but to reach out to their council representatives and ask questions and clarification so they could fully understand what's going on, and then come back at our next council meeting and then have a fuller discussion around this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Well, I think I'll just close it out by summarizing again how we got down a rabbit hole here. And that is, approving a budget isn't something based upon how much time you spent on it, or when, or some arbitrary deadline. It's about making sure that you do everything you can to be transparent and be accountable to the people. The simple question was, put it off for a day or two to get the numbers of what the actual projects were. I thought it was great that Byron Matthews was able to give us all the numbers, but it still never clarified what the projects were. And so people will have to just live with that until we can get them out. I'm just not one who likes to rush anything. I just wanted to have that transparency. As I say it, before we voted on the budget, and we get a chance to do that now. And again, my feeling is simply about transparency, and I can't see adopting a budget to say maybe we can amend it if it isn't what we think it is. And no, I think we should address those things up front before we vote on it. But having had a motion and a second and discussion, I will now call for the vote. And I'd like to have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Estev? Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley?
Aye.
Mayor Adams?
I'll be last.
Councilmember Brady?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Aye.
Councilmember Truesdale?
Nay.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilwoman Indeba Madu?
Nay.
Mayor Adams?
Nay.
Point of order?
It's been moved, and I think when we count up the votes, it's 5-2. Is that correct? What was it? 6-1? I can't tell.
Please ask for roll call vote.
Motion passes 4-3.
What was it?
4-3.
4-3.
4-3.
4-3.
4-3?
4-3
It passed,
and
4-3?
passed.
Okay.
Point.
Thank
point-
you. We will now move
point-
on to,
Point of
but-
order.
excuse me?
On this last issue, I need a clarification from legal. Point of order on the vote we just took.
Okay, please, you're recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you. Do we need, in order to adopt the budget, do we need a supermajority or a simple majority?
You're going to have to give me a moment on that.
Certainly.
What did she say?
She's having to look it up. Just to explain to my colleagues why I asked this question, years ago when I was on the council previously, when we were dealing with Brava funding, we did a supplemental appropriation that granted money, and there was a 4-3 vote. And we later found out, after one of the colleagues who voted against it challenged it, that we would require, the supplemental appropriation required a supermajority. So I'm just asking, does that requirement apply to the adoption of the budget? Rather find out tonight the answer.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought it was a simple majority.
But I believe the answer is going to be you need a simple majority to adopt the budget, but that you need a 2/3 amendment, a majority to amend the budget. That is my recollection. And that's a state law thing. Yes. Yeah.
At this time, why don't we move on to the next agenda item? And then just have an answer come back from that.
Mr. Mayor, we have to do a resolution too. We have to do ordinance in one action and resolution in another.
CIP resolution.
Yes, I'll make that motion as well.
Mr. Mayor, it's a majority of the total elected membership of the council.
Simple majority?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Just wanted to clarify.
Miss, thank you. Thank you for council, and thank you for the inquiry, Mr. Brady. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of amended resolution R-12-24 for the capital improvement program.
It's been moved and properly in second discussion. On that capital improvement programs, Mr. Matthews, are any of the dollars from the CIP fund that we put into from the ice rink used in any of the CIP projects?
Yes, Mayor, the entire amount. When we revised the budget for capital projects, if you have your budget available, the initial request from council was $7,186,300 from the appropriated fund balance, and that's basically your bond money. Once we made the necessary changes due to revenue that we recognized from state and federal governments during the process, that amount was reduced to $6,309,300, and that amount is being used from the bond proceeds.
And that's for this budget, this
That's
current
correct.
budget. And did we have any of that money, since this is going through 2025 to 2030, did we have any additional dollars from that money appropriated for any other projects in out years?
In the out years, Mayor, I'm projecting that we will have We will have $7,131,000 for FY '26. We must understand the dynamics of capital projects. We appropriate money, we spend money. Projects can come in over or under the amount of the original appropriation.
Well, understood, Mr. Matthews. And it may come in a year later or after that. No, I just wanted to get the numbers. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Any other discussion? So there are still millions that we're utilizing this year from that money as well, which I think the citizens would love to know what that's being used for. Anyway, having said that, any other discussion? It's been moved and properly second. Let's call for the vote. Another roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Estev,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley,
Aye.
Councilmember Brady,
Aye.
Councilmember Truesdale, Councilmember Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebamadu,
Nay.
Mayor Adams.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-3.
I couldn't hear you.
Passes 4-3.
4-3? Okay. All right. Moving on to new business, I will turn it over to staff.
Mr. Mayor, before you turn, may I just be recognized for a brief moment?
Kate, you gotta come up here.
Excuse me?
Is that possible that I just meet? I'm gonna drop off now and go back to meetings.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleagues for the amendment. Have a good night.
Good night.
Let her sit there. She needs, okay.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Thank you for hearing from me this evening. My name is Kay Starr. I am the grant writer for the city.
Mic a little closer. Pull your mic a little, there you go.
Good evening. My name is Kay Starr. I am the grant writer and program coordinator for the city's Office of Grant Development and Administration. I am presenting this evening on the annual action plan for our Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG funding, that we get annually from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. I'm going to quickly review for council and the residents what the Office of Grant Development and Administration does, just to give you some background on our work. We're responsible for researching grant opportunities on behalf of the city based on funding priorities and needs that are identified by the department heads and directors as we meet with them throughout the year. We also encourage them to do research on their own time. We evaluate grant opportunities that they bring to us and decide whether or not to move forward with applications. If those funds are awarded, we manage them from the financial and reporting side. And also, depending on the program, we often coordinate those programs ourselves, which involves a lot of project management as well as program evaluation and design. Those programs include workforce development and life skills training. The annual program just concluded this past week. We also administer the CDBG program, which I'm presenting on this evening. There's a first-time homebuyer assistance program that the city offers with grants to help with closing costs that are matched by the state of Maryland. Information about that program is on the city website, as well as our single-family housing rehabilitation program, which is also part of the CDBG program, and I will expand on that shortly. We also do fair housing administration and training, both for staff and for city residents. And we also are working on affordable housing policy, including implementation of MPDU programs with developers in and around the city of Bowie. MPDU stands for affordable dwelling, moderately priced dwelling units, apologize. It used to be ADU for affordable dwelling unit. We also provide homelessness and emergency resident assistance services based on situations that come up in the city, including things like fires, storm damage, and other emergency situations. Just want to give a quick overview of some of the current and past grants that our office has managed to give you an idea of the kind of work we do. Currently, there is a grant for improving the city of Bowie water system, making replacements of the pipes, and mainly, I believe, in M section, that's funded by EPA that Public Works is proceeding with. We also recently got a grant from Prince George's County to proceed with updates and improvements to the Railroad Museum, which builds on a grant that we got from them in years past to do the 10th Street Park Playground project. We also recently got a injection of money from the Department of Energy called the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, or EECBG. So those are some of the current programs we're working on. Future plans include funding that we received from HUD to make improvements at Allen Pond Park. And we are also developing our ongoing partnership with Employ Prince George's to include the development of a computer lab for job seekers up at the Kenhill Center, which we're hoping to be beginning on starting the new fiscal year. Past and ongoing grant development projects that we've worked on in the ongoing basis or with past years include Project Open Space, which is a state program that allows us to acquire parkland and also improve that parkland by building things like playgrounds and recreation equipment, and also the CDBG program, which I'm going to talk about in more detail. As part of the CDBG program, we were also able to get some CARES Act funding that we were able to use for emergency food assistance and rental assistance during 2020 and 2021. And we got additional CARES Act funding because we were able to expend all of the funding that they gave us, which we were able to incorporate into emergency services for residents. So the Community Development Block Grant Program, the goals of this program are to develop viable urban communities, provide decent housing for U.S. residents, expand economic opportunities, and address at least one of the national objectives as defined by HUD. These objectives include benefiting lower moderate income persons, eliminating slums and blight, or fulfilling an urgent need. Eligible activities include a wide variety of programs and projects, such as acquisition, demolition, or rehabilitation of real property, construction of public facilities, public services, assistance to community-based development organizations, economic development, energy conservation activities, and renewable energy activities, and planning and administration of the program. The CDBG program is done in 5-year increments called a consolidated plan. The current plan we're in the first year of, and will run through 2028. We went through the con plan process last year, which included soliciting resident feedback through surveys and a variety of different public meetings to get feedback on current CDBG programming and possible changes or updates for future years. It included a needs assessment that was done over what the city of Bowie is most in need of, and we develop an annual action plan every year to demonstrate what projects we're going to undertake in that year. At the end of the year, we produce a report called a CAPER, which goes over what milestones we reached and what programming goals we achieved that year. During the citizen participation process, as I mentioned, we give a survey to residents. We try especially to target people who are lower or moderate income, particularly residents of the city of Bowie. All of our CDBG documents are available on the city website, and we make them available at various public locations around the city so that residents can review our proposed activities and respond and give public comment if they would like. The single-family rehabilitation program has been a very popular program. We just concluded an application round and got a record number of applicants, actually. So interest in that program continues to be quite high. The city has determined through the con plan process that there's no particular priority need based on race, ethnicity, or gender, which just means that the city of Bowie, demographically speaking, doesn't have any one particular group that is in most need of targeted support. Not that we don't have needs based on people with those demographics in the city. HUD also determines that seniors as a group are presumptively a lower moderate income population. We also have community partnerships that help us with providing emergency assistance with the Bowie Food Pantry and also with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, or DHCD. And we make sure that the folks that access our programs, the single family rehab program particularly, are aware of other programs offered by the state that may also be of interest to them, such as the Weatherization Assistance Program. For the upcoming year, we were proposing to continue the single-family rehab grant program. As I said, it continues to be very popular, and interest in that program is consistently high. This program helps residents make energy-efficient upgrades to their homes. This can be things as significant as replacing a roof or as relatively uncomplicated as replacing appliances with energy-efficient models. Updating doors and windows are another common project, and depends on the needs of the homeowner. We also propose to continue our workforce development activities. This will be hopefully in conjunction or in concert with the planned Job Seeker Lab. We want to develop programming that complements what residents are seeking and possibly expand that programming depending on what the public interest is. And we also want to make sure that the programming offered by the city complements what's being offered by Employ Prince George's, as they will be launching a program in Prince George's County Public High Schools next year that will include career counseling and coaching with Employ Prince George's staff. So we want to complement those efforts and not be redundant to what they're offering. And possibly expand workforce support to all residents in addition to the youth programming that we've had in the past years for ages 15 to 25. And we will also continue to consult with Employ Prince George's about what services best serve the job seekers here in Bowie and in the county. We also will continue our fair housing education activities. April is Fair Housing Month, as some of you probably are aware, for the very simple reason that the Fair Housing Act was signed in 1968 in the month of April. We just had our fair housing event this past month. It was very well attended. We had a lot of interest, particularly from the real estate sector, which was encouraging to see. And we had a lot of great, passionate discussion about the current housing issues facing people here in the city as well as the county, and continued interest in talking about those issues and raising more public awareness about the demand for housing in the area. Here's the annual action plan development schedule. We held 2 public hearings. I held those online via Zoom. We also made draft documents of the annual action plan available at public spaces as well as online. We incorporate any public comments we get into the final draft of the document. I'm now presenting it to you this evening for your approval. Once it's approved, we will submit it to HUD for the upcoming year. This is the conclusion of my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions for me or my colleagues.
Hey, thank you so very much. Any questions from anyone? Hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry, just a small question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one brief question, since many of the programs we have are intended to help low and medium income families, how do we reach them? Because they're the ones that are likely lost when it comes to the typical communications, the internet and stuff like this. How do we reach out to let them know these things are available?
So as the council may be aware, the Bowie Blade ceased publication a few years ago, and public outreach efforts, we continue to recalibrate to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible. We have been recently, my office particularly has been experimenting with different ways to reach the public to make sure they're aware of our programmings. This has included buying ads in Bowie Town Center. We're looking at bus shelter ads for one possible way to do public relations. We do flyering. I know I have a list of every billboard in Bowie at any commercial location. I can tell you every single one of them. I flyer them all. I send all the information we do to all of the faith communities in Bowie, which I regularly update. I send them an email and depending on the event or what we're doing, a paper mailing as well. I also email all the property management and homeowners associations in the planning database, as well as depending on the event, sometimes I'll email, for example, for fair housing, I contacted the Prince George's County Realtors Association. I don't remember their actual name. They have a real name, but I can't remember it. So depending on the programming, we try to tailor our outreach to where we think folks will be, or we're trying to meet folks where they're at. We've reached out to more online publications. I know with low and moderate income folks, that can't be a guarantee, but we're just trying to make sure to get the word out as much as we can. This is include Nextdoor posts, Facebook posts, Bowie Patch, Bowie Insider, the Bowie Sun, just throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. We try very hard to get the word out with the resources that are allocated.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's clear that you cast a very wide net, so I appreciate that. And I think all of us up here appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you for your good works in this endeavor. I know that everyone thinks of grants as money for nothing, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into researching and identifying them. So very much appreciate it. The one question I have for you is on the where we stand on the and maybe you have the insight, maybe we have to turn to somebody else on staff, on the recapitalization project in the Kenilworth section, the infamous Part B, awaiting final approval, I believe, was last I heard from EPA. I don't know if there's a further update.
It's gone out for bid. We have a pre-construction meeting this week.
Outstanding. Thank you very, very much. That's great news. Thank you, and thank you.
Any other questions, Councilman Staff?
No, I was just going to move to adopt R-22-24.
Hold on. At this time, I would like to, if there are no other questions from council, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have any questions, any speakers, anyone?
There's no one signed up to speak tonight.
No sign-ups? So I now declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move to adopt R-22-24.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? I think my only point of discussion would be that you do a phenomenal job, the office, and it's not only about identifying, as we all know, those grants, but about, it's tough writing, and it's competitive. And it's obvious we have some great folks doing some great things, so thank you on that. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none. The meeting is closed, and thank you to everyone for participating, and have a good evening.